Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to the Packernet Podcast. I am your host and resident fanalist, as always, Ryan Schlipp. Check us out online, packernet.com. Find me on Twitter, pack_data. I cannot even begin to tell you how absolutely excited I am to be back. I did not think I would be doing a podcast today. I didn't know how late I'd be getting back, whatever. I was just like, Monday will be the first podcast. Monday night we'll do Packing After Dark, and then whatever. No chance. I'm not just fired up. I feel like I'm on crack or something. I don't know what that feels like, but it's when I watch people on crack, it's like, oh, that's how I feel right now. Everything's happening and I'm missing it. I had a great time, by the way. Very relaxing-ish. My feet hurt. I'm tired. I'm sunburned. But relaxing. Great time. Spent too much money. Patreon.com/pack_daddy. Help me not be poor. Thank you so much for your support. But it was too hard. I was missing everything. I'm so used to being here in my command center, and I can see all the news come in one at a time. And I spent so much time arguing, which I didn't mean to, but it's a weird thing. I go on X, Twitter, and I post something, and normally it's 15 likes and, 2 comments. Just nonsense. I just said, it's not a big deal what I said. I'm just talking here. But because the Micah Parsons thing is so huge, everything's blowing up by my standards. Maybe not by some bigger account standards, but, 500,000, not 500, 500 to 1,000 to 1,500 likes. And then once it gets that big, Vikings fans find it, Bills fans find it and start fighting with me, Patriots fans are fighting. Everybody's fighting. Everybody on the outside, you realize what the perception of the Packers is from the outside, and everyone's an idiot. Nobody knows anything about the Green Bay Packers. Nobody. And so Bears fans want to chirp. Vikings fans can say something. Lions fans can say something. They actually have really good players, more so the Lions than the Vikings. But, they won a ton of games. They beat us last year. They can talk. But then the Bears fans want to come in and chip away you're worse than us too. Shut up, idiot. But again, it's not a big deal. I'm just saying stuff and everyone freaks out and then they start saying really stupid stuff and I can't leave that alone. So the point is, I got my one screen, I pull out my laptop and I'm just spending all my free time responding to idiots. And I can't see the news. I can't get over there. So I'm probably not behind. I'm probably mostly caught up. I don't think anything major happened that I missed. But I'm very excited to be back. I got a lot of requests for Laughing at the Enemy, which has to happen. The plan was initially going to be today we would do that. But I do think we need to take a day to just kind of get caught up. I think we have enough time before football starts and we start making fun of Dallas for getting frickin' curb stomped by the Eagles and everything to kind of take one day to just be like, boom, here we are. This is it. This is the groundwork. This is what's happening. And from there, we can start screaming at absolute idiots for disrespecting this team as well as laughing at the enemy. I don't know that I can control it. We might slowly seep into rage conversations. I have a habit of tripping myself up and falling face first into scorched earth hatred and rage. Also, I got the funniest message from Scotty Arms, at Scotty Arms on Twitter. Made me very happy and also scared at the same time. I want to thank my good friend, the hell is his name? Something Lombard. I don't know. I made it up last minute. I don't know where everybody's at right now, but let me just read this to you real quick. I really enjoyed the gentleman that filled in for you yesterday, but why was the pod 10 minutes long? Just so we're all on the same page, that was entirely AI. I am somewhat giddy that at least one person didn't recognize that. I'm hopeful that a lot of people didn't recognize that, although paranoid that if it's that easy to replace me, first time I had people reach out and be like, bro, That was great. I need more of that. And I want to find out more about this fellow. Like, bro, freaking calm down. It's like that video that was going around on social media. It's kind of like a meme now to make fun of people that suck at football or whatever, but it's like the starting quarterback is on the bench. I think he's hurt or something. It's just a skit, but he's on the bench, and then some other guys on the side are like, bro, look at that quarterback. He's so good. And the quarterback at the start is like, yeah, dude, that's my dog. He's killing it. And then they're like, oh, he should be our starter. This guy's amazing. They're like, oh, calm down. He's not that good. That dude sucks. I play with him every day. I practice with him. He's not that good. That's how I am currently with my own AI-created show that I'm creating. So I don't know. I please reach out, give me feedback on that if you did enjoy that. I kind of enjoy doing it. My mind is racing with this where you guys know, I've told you this 1,000 times, I go way too big. I think way too big. I plan way too big, and then it doesn't end up happening, and then the whole thing crashes down rather than saying small. But let me just verbalize where I'm at right now. I think it's entirely possible with AI to create an infinite amount, I'm not saying this literally, but just so we're clear, an infinite number of not just characters. This guy that I created is the only one in existence right now for the Packernet podcast. He may never come back, I don't know. But you can probably tell by his tone of voice, which I created his tone of voice, the way that he's supposed to sound and talk and the inflection and all that. His intent is to be a ranty, angry human being. He's filling in for me. That's how he's supposed to be. But if you think about these potential things, I mean, there could be like a very minor breaking news. If it's massive breaking news, we got Micah Parsons, I'm coming on here and I'm talking about it. If I can. If I'm not on vacation once a week, a freaking year. But sometimes there's minor stuff. There could be a thing about, oh, guess what? So-and-so changed his number, which I want to talk about that briefly. And you could have a different character that's more, I don't say monotone, but like a breaking news individual. I don't hate that idea. And I think right now it seems stupid and inefficient because it would be faster at this point for me to do it. But as I get better, and as I build out the systems, and as AI gets a little bit better, I think it would be really fast to put together a little 5-minute, 10-minute, whatever podcasts about here's some information that just broke. I know some people get real pissy about AI for whatever reason. They just hate everything AI. If that's you, I apologize. I know you exist, and I know that you don't like it. But Scotty he replied to that. He was like, he said, damn, I was honestly thinking this guy is witty as hell. Where can I find his stuff? It's one of the benefits of AI is that when you have, when I take my thoughts, which are just scrambled nonsense, and I'm weaving all over the place, just going all over. I don't even know what I said, where I left off. It's a freaking roller coaster listening to it. I can take all my thoughts and emotions and nonsense, filter it through AI to put it in a normal, like concise 0.12345 and put it out there. So it does sound much more witty and whatever, concise and not so stupid. Plus, I have time to go through and be like, no, that doesn't make sense, rather than just doing it live and you listen to me say something and then contradict myself 5 seconds later. Point is, give me some feedback on that, because I don't want to spend the time, the energy, the money, because these things do cost money, as always with AI, if everybody just thinks that's stupid dog crap. But I kind of like it, and I kind of want to do it. So if you're on the fence, indulge me, will you? Will you just lie to me and be like, it was so good, aw, yay, you're amazing, with your stupid AI crap. If you would indulge me, that'd be fantastic. Even my wife wouldn't do that. What is this show? Why does he look like a robot? Why is it only 7 minutes long? Why does he sound like that? Just turn it off. Stop listening to it. But all right. I think 10 minutes is plenty of time for my I haven't even started the show nonsense. Point is, I'm very glad to be back. Hit me up. 608-501-0718 is where you can call in. We have a ton of calls on there. I can't wait. I'm honestly beyond, I don't care how long it takes. I'll stay up till 2 a.m. I don't care. I'm excited to get through that. I'm looking on Twitter. I see Clayton's doing Packers versus Lions NFL preview, and I just got chills going through my body thinking we're in that. Like, I have like 3 days to rip these people, do laughing at the enemy, and then we got to go full bore Packers Lions. Oh, I'm freaking out. Anybody win the Powerball? Well, let's go through a little bit of news stuff together. All right, go through a couple things. A.J. Brown going to play, although he's hurt, on Thursday. Got that coming up very soon. I'm so excited to watch that. Trayvon Diggs, on the other hand, one of the corners for Dallas. I'm not even going to say best because he's so up and down. He was really good like 2, maybe 3 years ago, and then he was like their worst graded corner this last year, so I don't know. But he might not even play. Bills defensive tackle Dwayne Carter missed the entire season. Vikings are optimistic about wide receiver Jalen Naylor's hand availability for week 1 against the Bears. Again, I still don't even know who I'm rooting for in that game. Got to kind of see how everybody... The Bears might be better than the Vikings this year, in which case you root for the Vikings. I think it's one of those either way, you just enjoy it. It's an L to start the season for one of our rivals. Cowboys signed Deron Bland to a 4-year, $92 million extension through 2029. I think that was their top corner this past year. They had to do something like that to get fans' minds off of the nonsense. Shiloh Sanders, brother of what's-his-nuts, he ended up getting fined less than $5,000. The dude has made no money. It would be immoral to fine him more than that. You're going to bankrupt the guy. He tries to be an NFL player. He comes in. He gets a meager contract, immediately gets cut. His NFL career is probably over, and then you take all the money back. Panthers signed Hunter Renfrow. Bengals believe Burrow had the best camp of his career. Irrelevant. He's going to die behind that offensive line. The Athletic Jeff's Howe believes safety Nick Emanwari should be considered dark horse for NFL Defensive Rookie of the Year. Shut up. Not going to be a safety, dude. It's just not. Unless he ends up with like 10 picks, it's not going to be a safety. Micah Parsons' back tightness said he's feeling great. He won't be sitting on the sideline for Packers' Week 1 game against the Lions. I'm really, really hoping. And again, I've been out, so I don't know what the chatter has been. I'm sure there's been chatter about this. I'm hoping this whole quote-unquote back injury was a whole lot of him saying, I'm holding out, I'm not playing, and the reason I'm not playing is, oh, my back is killing me, my back. And he's just full of crap, and he showed up, and they're like, oh, we got to do some work on this guy, see if his back's messed up. And they're like, how's your back? And he's like, oh, obviously I had some issues, but feeling better. Like, well, okay, let us look at it. And they're like, oh, I mean, what hurts? And it's like, well, I don't know, man, that plane ride over, something just kind of popped, and I think we're back. I'm hoping that's it. If this is a nagging back injury for the entire season, and he has a decline in his, and well, he's going to have in the offseason some kind of a surgery, I'm going to lose my freaking mind. Okay? Kind of the two ends of the spectrum on that. Jeff Howe says Kyle Pitts could be a trade candidate if the Falcons stumble before the November. Just do it. Packers, just do it. You know what? We are so far all the way in, it's stupid. Go get Kyle Pitts. Tucker Kraft, Kyle Pitts, that's your two tight ends. Sorry, Musgrave, we love you. We'll send you over to freaking the Falcons as part of the compensation package. We'll give up a second for it because, F them picks is the new motto for the Green Bay Packers. And we'll just set up a dynasty. How about that? Athletics' Jeff Howe believes it might not be all that shocking if rookie wide receiver Golden quickly becomes Jordan Love's go-to wide receiver. I don't know how much I've talked about this, and I know I've talked a little about it. I do think that's going to happen. And I'm trying so hard to temper my expectations. But when it comes to Golden and a few other people, one of which may have just recently been acquired, I don't know if I can temper for number 0 and number 1. And we'll get to the numbers again if I haven't said that yet. I want to talk about that for a minute. I just don't think I can. When you look at Jaden Reed's going to have a nagging injury all year, and Wicks has always kind of had drop issues. Maybe last year was a little bit outside of the norm, but I mean, he's so far down the pecking order anyways. I don't know how much he's even going to be on the field. And so it's kind of going to be a Dobbs and Golden thing. And I just think the ball is going to slowly migrate to Golden more and more and more. I think the reason Golden, there's two main reasons Golden is kind of looked down on, and that's a silly thing to say because I do think his, when I look over at fantasy football, the whole thing I'm looking at for when I should draft Golden is the number in my mind of yards and touchdowns, and then when you get to that number of wide receiver, I'm kind of looking in that range. Last I saw, he's in and around like 1,000. I got the Sleeper app just sitting here. Let me see if I can find it real quick. Players, there's Mr. Golden. How do I find his projections? I see the weekly projections here. There we go. So they have him at 925 yards and 6 touchdowns. 4 rushing attempts, 24 yards. I can tell you right now he's going to have more than 4 rushing attempts. Our head coach is not going to be able to control himself. when it comes to Matthew Golden rushing the ball. That's going to be at least once every 2 games kind of a thing. So I would double that at a minimum, 8 rushing attempts. Although 24 yards might be correct. I don't know how many yards he's going to get. But I don't know, man. I don't want to overdo it, but I just think the 2 main things are, again, they see the Packers as having just a pile of guys, and it's always hard to get a ton of yards when you're just one of 4 or 5 guys or whatever. It's a committee. And on top of that, he's a rookie, so it's like, I don't want to overplay it. I don't know. I don't want to put him in that, like, first of all, he'd have to be an elite or at least a top number 1 guy if we're going to start doing 1,100, 1,200 yards and, closer to double-digit touchdowns. He'd have to be that, and we'd have to kind of do away with the committee thing. It's not impossible. There are duos that are in the thousands or close to or whatever. But I just think he's going to pull away so fast. I don't think, again, I never want to like dunk on Tucker Kraft, but I think the hype for him is higher than it should be. I don't see him as in that top tier type of group. I like Tucker. He's probably better than tight ends we've had in I don't know how long, forever. One of the best probably in my lifetime, but honestly, that just isn't saying a ton. I don't think he's ever going to emerge into a Travis Kelce type of guy. So I don't think he really draws away in a massive way, unlike other tight ends on other teams. I mean, even just in the NFC North, he might be the 4th best tight end. And I know that sounds crazy, but look at who the Bears just drafted. Look at the Vikings, and they have really good tight ends. I'm just saying. It's kind of similar to being like, well, the Packers were 3rd in their own division. Yeah, but that's not so much a knock on the Packers as it is talking about how good the division was. And you idiots don't seem to understand that. Who was the bad team that beat the Packers legitimately? And when I say legitimately, I don't mean a Week 18 game when the Packers team had checked out and our quarterback got hurt and we pulled our starters. That's not what I mean by legitimate. Legitimately bad team that beat the Packers. You know what? 0 examples is what you have. Freaking Jack. I'm getting pulled into it. I gotta back off here. We're not getting there. We're not doing it. I legitimately believe, pending any kind of injuries or whatever, Matthew Golden will crack, I think, somewhat easily and comfortably 1,000 yards. Let me look at. I don't want to speak too flippantly here. Let me just look at what wide receivers did last year before I start throwing around words like comfortably. Yeah, so if you look at last year, there were 21 wide receivers that cracked 1,000 yards. So you're kind of just looking and saying, and that's just regular season. If we look at the entire year, which I think most people would do that, and we assume the Packers would get into the playoffs. Let's just take a little look-see here. 23. So we're kind of saying, is Matthew Golden, not that yards are necessarily the metric for a good wide receiver, but generally speaking, do we think he could be a top 25 receiver? Of course we do. It's not exactly the question, but you look at, for example, Detroit. Jamison Williams cracked 1,000 yards in 16 games. He's a number 2 that Lions fans are still saying, boy, oh boy, I can't wait for him to really break out. You know what I mean? Now, am I saying 1,700 like Jamar Chase? No. But even if you look at 1,100, there were 16 that cracked 1,100, and you're looking at, I've said this before, it's a young man's game. Garrett Wilson. Interruptions. Garrett Wilson, Jackson Smith-Njigba, Puka Nacua, Malik Neighbors. These are the guys that are doing it. So anyways, to get back to what Jeff Howe says, Matthew Golden, he says, it might not be shocking if Matthew Golden quickly becomes Jordan Love's go-to wide receiver. I think that's going to be the case. The whole 1,000-yard, 1,100-yard conversation comes down to essentially that. I think it's going to go from a committee very quickly to Matthew Golden as the number 1. And the gap between him and the next guy, I don't know. Jordan Love has a very good relationship with Romeo. Really likes Romeo, likes to throw to Romeo. But again, these things can change. You throw a pass to Romeo and he drops it, and then you throw to Matthew Golden double covered and he comes down to it. How quickly does he, really start to distribute heavily to Golden? And it's not just Jordan. How long before Matt LaFleur starts building his offense around Matthew Golden? about making sure he's the one that gets schemed open, building everything around, setting up that Jordan Love to Matthew Golden connection, trying to set up routes to beat whether it's man coverage or a double team or whatever the case may be. And I said this last year, that was a big problem that they had, was that he didn't know who to build the offense around. I think he wants it to be Tucker Kraft because he loves Tucker Kraft and his tight ends and all that stuff, and obviously wanted to build a really strong run game. But as far as, who are we distributing the ball to? When Reed looks like the guy and then Reed falls off, and then Dobbs looks like the guy and then Dobbs gets hurt and throws a hissy fit and doesn't want to play anymore, and then Wicks looks great, but then he starts dropping everything, and it's just like, I don't know what to do. But to be able to have stability and say, we're building this offense around Matthew Golden and a strong run game, and we also have Dobbs to do X, Y, and Z. We also have Reed to do A, B, and C. We also have Kraft to do LMNOP. But to just have some stability, this is our quarterback, and obviously we build around our quarterback, but this is our quarterback. This is what he does. This is how our offense operates. This is what our wide receiver one looks like. And our offense is, the identity of the offense matters. Matt LaFleur has to build that. And it's built around Jordan, Golden, and Jacobs. That's what I believe the core of this is. For Matt LaFleur, building an offensive identity, I think that quickly becomes the identity. And it's not necessarily to discredit any, but we've all known Dobbs and Reed and all those guys are solid contributors. But they're not guys you build an offense around. So, bottom line, I agree with that take. Why don't we take a break? When we come back, I want to elaborate on Matthew Golden by talking about this number situation. Several players, we got a guy coming in, he decides I'm not going to take Reed's number at 11. I'm going to come in and take this number because it's freaking dope. Takes that number, and then apparently everybody's just like, I want a new number, and that includes Matthew Golden. So I want to touch on that for just a little bit. We'll take a break. We'll come back freaking minute. First of all, this Jeff Howe must have just wrote a really long article with everything in it. The Athletics' Jeff Howe reports Chargers DC Jeff Minter and Packers DC Jeff Hafley could be head coach candidates in 2026. So, kind of an interesting dynamic here. I think you could argue in two different directions. Very strongly that, yes, we this is our last year with Hafley. I think you can make a strong argument for that. There's also an argument for he's not going anywhere. The argument for Hafley is that he's already got a very good reputation. He just does. I think everybody was impressed with his defense. I think it was an underrated defense. A lot of Packer fans and skeptics and everything else, negative fans, is like, there's no pass rush, there's no corners, the team sucks, blah, blah, blah. Statistically, looking at just about any metric, it was a good defense. And again, the pass rush thing was massively overblown. It was bad to start the year. It was actually quite good to end the year. We had really good pass rush, really good coverage, really strong physical defense. Run defense was about as good as we've had in a very long time. But of course, everybody just missed that and wanted to whine because we don't have a guy with 20 sacks on the season, because that's all anybody knows is sacks. It's the brilliance of negative fans. The only metric they know is sacks. Some of the mega big brains might also know about interceptions, but that's a stretch. But he came into the NFL with a strong reputation. He maintained and possibly grew that reputation this past year. And obviously there is an expectation that in year two, there's going to be growth. And of course you add Micah Parsons to that. You're looking at a defense that you can kick and scream and whine all you want. Easily was a top 10 defense. I think they ranked 6th via DVOA. You add Micah Parsons to that. I mean, you don't know what's going to happen. They could completely fall off a cliff and all hell could break loose. It could be terrible. But if we're just being honest, saying that this isn't going to be a top 5 defense, there's no argument for that. There just isn't. And so you're looking at one of the top defenses that just terrifies everybody, especially knowing Green Bay's reputation with defense. He's going to have a fantastic reputation and is going to be a head coach candidate, no doubt about it. Now, whether he actually gets a job is a separate matter, but pretty strong case that he's going to be highly coveted and probably will end up getting a job. The reverse side of that, there's two sort of counter arguments to him not going anywhere. Number one is the easiest, which is he doesn't like being a head coach. The argument centers around, does he really want to leave? Do you want to leave being a defensive coordinator to go back to, and I know the issue wasn't just head coaching, it was head coaching in college. That was the big issue, and it's going to be hard to say no to head coaching in the NFL. But you're going to be looking at a team that fell apart. It's a bullcrap team that sucks. They're tearing down, they're restarting. You're not just in charge of the defense. You're not just a defensive guru and all that stuff. You have to be a head coach of a bullcrap team. I mean, that's just what you are, and you're probably going to fail, and it's going to be a disaster. You'll make more money. It's an opportunity, blah, blah, blah. But maybe it's not the most appealing thing in the world. And then the other issue, which is kind of stupid, but some people may begin to believe that he's not actually that good. He is a decent defensive coordinator, but all the credit goes to Micah Parsons. The Micah Parsons thing could backfire in regards to that whole situation, where everybody's like, is he really good, or was Micah Parsons just making that defense look better than it was? And if you remove him from that equation, they're not good anymore. That simple question could end up sabotaging. All it takes is one or two teams to say, I don't know. I mean, him without Micah Parsons and having to control the offense, I don't know how much I like that. Plus, I'd rather have an offensive guy, et cetera, et cetera. The arguments for him leaving, or at least having strong interest, is probably a stronger argument, but it's pretty legitimate to think the other thing. And he has to actually prove it first. This has to be like a top 5, top 3 defense for this to even be a discussion to begin with. All right, back to this stupid numbers thing. Starting from the beginning again, Micah Parsons chose to be number 1. Similar to number 11, just dropped one of the ones. No big deal. Micah Parsons asked people on social media, should I have number 0 or number 1? He went with number 1, invoking the legacy of Packers founder Curly Lambeau, who last wore it in 1926. That alone is a cool little tidbit, if you weren't aware of that. We'll get into the rules and why it's been the way it is and why nobody's been that number, whatever. But Micah Parsons comes to Green Bay and picks a historic number. That's right, I said ahistoric, not anhistoric, which I think is a stupid way to say it. I don't care if it's grammatically correct. It doesn't make sense. H is not a vowel, and it's perfectly fine to say ahistoric. It's not a hard thing to say. We don't need to throw an N in there to help us get from one to the next. If you can't do it, then you can't speak. Get out of my face. It's an historic moment. No, it's not an historic moment. It's saying stupid things. But that went and started a flurry of changes. Emmanuel Wilson's like, well, I want to be 23. So he goes from 31 to 23. Israel Abanikanda, after Simmons got released, is like, hey, man, I kind of like that number. So he takes 28. But the biggest one, in terms of changes anyways, is Matthew Golden did what everybody wanted him to do. Big hubbub about numbers you're not supposed to have. Again, it's a very minor thing for me. I certainly can look at a number and be like, that's freaking weird. But some people get crazy about the number thing. Either way, I think most people are very happy that he switched from 22 to number 0. Now, a couple things. Some people are furious because they happen to have signed Matthew Golden apparel, cost a ton of money, and it's not the right number. And I will say, as somebody who does not buy jerseys or any of that kind of stuff, I had to splurge for my son. He has, thanks to Uncle Clayton, he has a signed Christian Watson jersey because he picked Christian Watson and the Packers drafted him. He picked Matthew Golden as his top guy, top receiver, and the Packers got him. It's just a tradition at this point. I told him that. If you say, this is my guy, and the Packers draft him, you will get a signed jersey of that person. That is the thing. But I'm really not upset about it. And my wife hyped it up like, this is freaking awesome because now you have rare apparel and all that. Everyone's, Matthew Golden's going to be a legend and everyone's going to know him as number 0. And it's like, what is 22? Why do you have that? It's like, well, let me tell you a little history. It's going to be worth so much more, blah, 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 whatever. Not super worried about it. He didn't seem worried about it, so I'm fine with it. But outside of that little hubbub, most people hated 22 and 0 looks cool. I can't say 0 is a wide receiver number because I don't think anybody knows what 0 is, but it looks cool. I'm excited about it. I like the weird numbers. I like number 1. I like 0. I like 99. I don't know. I like that. I guess I am a little weird about numbers, but just not like, you can't wear that. You have to change it. I don't know. Whatever. Kind of just look at it and grimace. But the really cool thing is that Parsons, again, first since Curly Lambeau, and only Those are the only two, I think, that have ever wore it since 1926. But Matthew Golden had him beat because nobody ever has worn number 0 for the Green Bay Packers. There's a reason for that, but either way, very awesome. Micah Parsons wearing a historic number 1 jersey. Matthew Golden wearing a historic number 0 jersey. Now, as far as I understand, as far as how we got here, in 2021, the NFL loosened numbering restrictions. Running backs, tight ends, wide receivers could now wear 1 through 49 and 80 through 89. Defensive backs could pick from 1 through 49. Linebackers had 1 through 59 and 90 through 99. And then in 2023, they went even further. They started allowing number 0, giving kickers and punters access to 20 through 49, as well as 90 through 99. So Micah Parsons can now wear number 1, partially because the Packers that never actually retired that number. I guess they figured, we gave you the stadium, we gave you a statue, we're going to keep the number available. So there you go. And as for 0, number 0, as well as 00, was banned in 1973 when the league first enforced strict numbering by positions. A few were grandfathered in, but officially that ban ended in that 2023 change. As far as why they did it, in 2021, the roster expansion had to do with 55-man rosters, which was a post-2020 change, as well as expanded practice squads. Teams were running out of jersey numbers in the old positional ranges. I'm sure retiring numbers maybe played a little bit on one end of it, but also when COVID happened, they started expanding rosters. And so when that happened, they're like, all right, we're going to have to expand the numbering. Veterans, especially defensive backs and linebackers, pushed hard. They wanted more single-digit numbers, which was popular in college. They argued that roster crunches justified it. Guys like Tyrann Mathieu was one of the loudest voices pushing for it. Owners voted in April 2021 to loosen restrictions. And so that's when you get your 2021 change. Suddenly you see guys like Justin Jefferson with 18, Jalen Ramsey with 5, stuff like that. And then in 2023, this was less about, the other stuff and more to do, this was an NFLPA proposition. So the players' union got together. Obviously, the players were advocating for it. They pushed for it. The union went to the league. They proposed adding 0 during the 2023 owners' meetings. Players had long wanted it for individuality and branding. Makes sense. It's a cool number. Almost nobody's wore it. Players are like, dude, I want 0. So they went to the league and like, come on, let's do this. College football recently allowed 0. That started in 2020. Players absolutely loved it. And again, they kind of pushed the whole logistics thing with expanded rosters and all that kind of stuff. They used that as sort of their justification, even though that wasn't really the reason that they wanted it. And so the owners said, fine, league approved it in 2023. So again, 2020 kind of busted this whole thing wide open, whereas 2021 it became a necessity. And then, again, when they saw the sort of that flexibility being there, they're like, hey, let's push it a little bit more, see if we can get 0 put in. Jaguars wide receiver Calvin Ridley was the first to officially wear it in a regular season game. Opened the door for guys like Matthew Golden. So that's a little background with the numbers thing. I think it's very cool. Some other interesting little tidbits here. On the 28th, Mark Murphy was officially inducted into the Packers Hall of Fame. He becomes the 171st inductee. The ceremony took place at Lambeau Field Atrium. He served 17 years as president and CEO before retiring in July when he turned 70, which is the mandatory retirement age. Under his leadership, the Packers made 12 playoff appearances, 1 Super Bowl XLV, not even going to try. I don't remember. Was that 40, 45? Right, because the L, I think, is a 50, minus 10 is 40, add the 5. I don't freaking know. Created the Titletown District, that whole development there, brought the 2025 NFL Draft to Green Bay, oversaw the hiring of Brian Gutekunst and Matt LaFleur. Murphy is believed to be the first person in NFL history to win a Super Bowl as a player with Washington in 82, as well as the CEO, Packers 2010. So, very awesome. I think he's a very respected person, and for good reason. I have a feeling that he's going to start being disliked more, because I think a lot of what's happening recently is going to be falsely attributed to Ed Policy pushing for it. Now, one of the first things you can say to kind of push back on that, talking about Micah Parsons here, is that everybody that's talking about this whole narrative of, oh, the Packers are doing something different this year, what is the other thing they point to? Drafting a wide receiver at 1. Who was the president when they did that? Who was the president that brought the draft to Green Bay and then presided over them drafting a wide receiver in the first round? Now, I think that whole narrative is stupid. I really do. And I understand it's hard to not look at it and be like, man, the Packers are doing something different. I don't think they are. Again, wide receiver is a bigger need than it has been in a long time. Obviously, you know, they're not a strictly needs-based drafting team. There is some need involved in it. They're not completely blind to that. I've always said it's kind of a spectrum, and I think the Packers fall heavily, a little bit more heavily on the best player available side of the spectrum compared to the needs-based drafting part of the spectrum. But all that time when we had Devontae and Jordy and all those guys, yeah, we didn't have a number 1 receiver drafted because it was never really a high priority. Number 2, they did try to draft wide receivers at different times. They just weren't available. And you go, what about this guy? They didn't like him as much. They maybe saw him as a second-round guy, not a first-round guy. They liked somebody else. And even if they were wrong, it doesn't change the fact that it wasn't strictly, we just would never do it. The other thing about this that I find so stupid, and I think I have a video of this somewhere or whatever, but it's like, this is how you know they're going all in, because they drafted a wide receiver in the first round. You stupid idiot. Are you absolutely a moron? What do you call it when you draft edge rushers and cornerbacks and defensive tackles? Why are we acting like wide receiver is the thing that you do? We drafted a freaking quarterback. These are premium positions. But that really wasn't all in. It's when you draft a wide receiver that you're all in. You stupid, absolute idiot. Stuff drives me nuts. That means they're all in. So if they had drafted a pass rusher or a corner, that's not all in. Really? It's just because they did something different? That they broke some kind of a... And again, I went through the whole math of it. It's really not that statistically shocking for that to have happened. It really isn't. Not going to do it all over again, but I did a podcast on that. I went through the math on that. It's not that weird that they didn't draft a wide receiver in that period of time. In the first round, they drafted a lot of receivers, a lot of really high-quality receivers, Hall of Fame caliber receivers. Oh, they're really doing something special this year. What? What are they doing? The draft was a normal draft. Free agency was light, as everybody loves to point out. They didn't do anything. Okay, so where's the all-in? And again, I'm not saying they're not trying to win. I'm saying they're trying to win like they always do. They're as all in as they always are. Well, what about Micah Parsons? What about Micah Parsons? Well, when do they ever do this? When does this ever become available? Are you freaking kidding me? The last time we saw anything ever like this was Khalil Mack, and the Packers did try very hard to get Khalil Mack. I told you 1,000 times, this is exactly the kind of thing the Packers would do. This is the kind of thing they do. But do you have any idea how rare this is? You think this just happens like 5 times a year? You think every year the Packers have this opportunity to do this and they just never do? No, the stuff that they never do is all the bull crap that everybody wants them to do. That's stupid. That 32-year-old broke down wide receiver. Oh, they didn't do that, so they don't even care. No, they just have different priorities. They have a very high threshold for things that they want to do. And what they want to do is awesome stuff. Everybody's, oh, you guys overpaid. Yeah, maybe they did. But do you know why? It's because the Packers aren't idiots. They care significantly less about that 32-year-old bum than the rest of the league does. But they care significantly more about young, talented, elite freak players like Micah Parsons. And I love that about the Packers. I'm so sorry that they're not all in on all the bullcrap scraps that are just thrown around out there. I'm so sorry that we can't do the little lists that everybody else does when they're like, oh, the Bears got so much better. They added Jim Smith and Timmy Bobbleson and that 35-year-old guy and this guy who's never been good. And oh, what about that? And it's a list of 19 guys, 2 of which are actually good at anything. I'm sorry we can't do that list for you, and you want it so desperately to just list off all these names of bullcrap. Sitting over here fighting with a Vikings fan talking to me about how they got Thielen back. Oh, yeah, you seem to be ignoring that we got him back for a day 3 pick swap. Wow, you're so thrifty. You're amazing because you're thrifty, apparently. That's how you win. You frickin' go to the bargain bin of the NFL and pick up a 52-year-old wide receiver that you decided you didn't want on your team like 3 years ago but I only gave up a day 3 pick. Why would you give up anything for that guy? That's the point, you moron. This is the problem. The Vikings are the opposite of the Packers. They can't draft and develop. They spend all their time in free agency, and rather than getting young, talented 25-year-old pieces to build a strong team for the future, they focus on how in the hell are we going to get through this year considering my draft sucked so much. We have so many holes. Oh, I know. Let's go bargain bin shopping. This is kind of similar to what Ted Thompson did, although he was obviously draft and develop and wanted young talent and all that stuff. But when it came to like, how do we patch holes? He's like, I don't know. What's the cheapest crap we can get? But it's even worse in Minnesota because they're obsessed with 33-year-olds. So I understand that they've had some success, and I can't fathom how they're doing it other than their coaching staff is very fantastic. Because this GM is dog crap. And I've said this before, the problem, and I'm getting way off topic here, but the problem with the Vikings is even if they're successful, you look at it and say, next year we can't keep any of these guys. We have to cut all of them, and we have to bring in a whole new batch of 33-year-olds. And so we can very easily be a team that goes from 14 wins to 3 wins in a season, depending on which 33-year-old dog crap players we decide to get. So anyways, I don't think the Packers did. I know that the Packers this season look massively different, but I've been saying since day one, the Packers are not opposed to drafting wide receivers. It's just that they haven't drafted wide receivers. And it's not true that the Packers don't do anything. There's a million examples of Brian Gutekunst going out and doing things. In fact, some years being very aggressive, some years not so much. But there's a pattern to what they like, and the fact that you guys, I'm talking to the guy behind you over there. The fact that frickin' guy can't pick out the pattern because he just wants to piss and moan and whine. You never do anything. You never do anything. I want to smack your face so badly. They might not do as much as everybody else because they're not desperate to go out and ruin their team with bull crap. I got a lot of pent-up energy here. I haven't done a podcast in a while, all right? I'm sorry. But when they do things, what do? They go get Josh Jacobs. They get Xavier McKinney. They get Micah freaking Parsons. So stop your whining. Stop your whining. Shut your mouth. You don't know what you're talking about. These people you've been whining about that they don't do their job just got you Micah Parsons, and I don't want to hear a freaking word about overpaying. So anyways, the idea that the Micah Parsons thing never would have happened under the leadership of a different CEO and that the current CEO policy pushed this, stop it. That's not even their job. That's not what they do. They don't decide which guys come on this team. They have different jobs. They have a different job entirely. You don't tell the GM how to do his job. And the idea that Gutekunst would have no interest if not being pushed by policy, good Lord, you don't know anything about the Packers. I don't know how you could be a fan of this team for 50 years and allow this negative hatred nonsense to just block you from just simply paying attention for 50 years. But there's a reason why I get stuff right, and I can look at it and say, oh, McKinney, that's somebody the Packers would be interested in. Oh, Josh Jacobs, the Packers would love to have that. Oh, Trey Hendrickson, I don't think they would want him, but boy, oh boy, if that guy in Dallas became available, they sure would be very, very, very motivated. How did I know? It's simple. It's a simple trick that I have called paying attention. Why don't we take a break, and we'll be right back. We got some injury updates. Got some pretty good news, some fantastic news, actually, regarding Jordan Love. Not that it's not expected, but, you hold your breath until you see it. After the thumb surgery just 2 weeks ago, Love returned to full practice around August 27th, a promising sign for Week 1 readiness against Detroit. There was an interview that he had done in the locker room, presumably right after practice, but he was talking about how they did a full 4-quarter simulated practice between the 1s and 2s and all that stuff, and he participated in that, so he seems to be ready, full go, all that stuff. Very, very, very excited. Some other great news here, this via Zach Cruz over at Yahoo Sports. Packers' Aaron Banks, Savion Williams return after missing only one practice. Starting left guard Aaron Banks and rookie wide receiver Savion Williams both returned to Green Bay Packers practice on Sunday after missing just one training camp practice with injuries. Banks, the Packers' big free agent signing, along the offensive line, injured his back midway through. Williams, a third-round pick out of TCU, suffered a concussion and also missed Friday's practice. Coach LaFleur called Banks day-to-day when asked on Friday, and left guard returned Sunday, suggests the injury was indeed minor. So this is fantastic news. It's probably not super good for Morgan. Again, my thought process was the Packers are unsure and probably not feeling great about, but I guess we could leave it at unsure, whether Banks was going to be playing at left guard, and so Morgan was getting a lot of time there, with the idea being we have to get him trained up there. And that's a good idea either way. The problem is, for Morgan, not necessarily for the team, number one, the Packers clearly felt that Rashid was the guy at the time to play left tackle. Maybe that's not fair to say either, because they're probably looking at best five. And we don't know what's going to happen week one. It might be Morgan. However, it's not great during your competition to say, okay, you're done playing left tackle now. We need you learning and studying and playing left guard and figuring out how to do that. Maybe there's been some news on this already, and I will continue to. I got home from vacation. I still haven't fully poured through everything, plopped down and started recording. I will look into this. But my guess today is Rashid, Banks, Elton, Sean Ryan, Zach Tom. And I'm not upset about that. Again, there might be some minor frustration about a first and second round pick sitting on the freaking bench. Also, slight frustration that our second round pick seems to only be a right tackle, apparently. And that position's not going anywhere. So there's a little confusion for me on that, but we'll deal with that next year, I guess. But anyways, some very, very good news there on the injury front. Doesn't mean 100% that Banks is going to be ready for week one, but it's certainly a fantastic sign. Generally, the injury reports come out on Wednesday, so we'll get a little better view of how that goes. But the fact that on Sunday we got these guys returning, I'm hopeful that by Wednesday and whatever, Banks will be ready to go. There is a small chance that maybe he's ready to go so late that they're like, screw it, let's just not, he hasn't been on the field in a long time, let's just not. Either way, we can assume, hopefully by week two, we got full force. There is also some slight concern about Elton Jenkins. He's been having some back issues as well. I don't know what's going on with all the back stuff. These guys giving each other freaking piggyback rides or something. I don't know what's going on. Need to knock that crap off. But he also had returned. He got put, I don't even remember when he was on, but he was activated off the NFI list July 28th. By July 29th, he was cleared medically, took part in his first padded practice at training camp, snapping to Jordan Love during individual periods. So, again, I'm a little fuzzy on some details I may have missed, but that's kind of where I think we're at right now. I'm more excited about Savion Williams than I probably should be, because I doubt we'll see much of him. But, a guy can dream. All right, I'm trying to sneak a bunch of other stuff in here real quick to get just caught up on things. When I left last week, we had completed the 53, but I left the practice squad because it's like I don't really have time and all that stuff. There wasn't really any details. You may or may not have been updated on kind of where we're at, but here is sort of my understanding of how that all went down. There's an article here from August 27th over at Packers.com. Packers signed 13 players to the practice squad. The Green Bay Packers have added Israel, and then they say how you're supposed to say it, Abani Konda. I know, but I've been saying it wrong a long time. Deslin Alexander, Jonathan Baldwin, Brant Banks, James Esther, Mecole Hardman. I'm a little surprised by Mecole, but excited. Or, excuse me, Mecole Hardman. Whatever, dude. I like how I say it. Jamon Johnson, McNamee, who's the IPP guy, which means we get a free guy to stash. Aaron Mosby, Isaiah Nayer, Will Shepard, Jalen Simpson, and Christian Welch. So that was sort of the initial 13. Obviously, it's not completely rounded out. That was the 27th. On the 28th, the Packers posted another thing. It says Packers announced roster moves. Green Bay Packers have signed tackle Dalton Cooper, quarterback Clayton Tune. That was a big thing before I had taken off. I kept seeing all the stuff about Clayton Tune. Packers like Clayton Tune. Packers are working out Clayton Tune, something. Remember, we're waiting on which quarterback was going to make it, and here we have quarterback Clayton Tune on the practice squad. And tight end Josh Wiley. General Manager Brian Gutekunst announced the transactions Thursday. Cooper, 6'6", 326, rookie out of Oklahoma State, who originally signs with the Kansas City Chiefs as a UDFA. On May 5th, he began his collegiate career at Texas State before playing his final 2 seasons for the Cowboys, blah, blah, blah. Clayton Tune, well, I guess I'll add this here. 59 games, 55 starts, honorable mention, all Big 12 honors from coaches in 2023, third-team All-Sun Belt recognition 2021, and a spot on the freshman All-American team by The Athletic in 2020. Clayton Tune, 6'3", 220, third-year player out of the University of Houston. Are my ears ringing, or is there actually like a buzzing? I hope you can't hear that. There's like a very consistent just ring sound. I'm just freaking have a brain tumor. I don't know. Originally selected by the Arizona Cardinals in the 5th round, number 139 of the 2023 NFL Draft, played 13 games with 1 start and 2 seasons for the Cardinals. Completed 14 of 23 passes for 70 yards, 2 picks, while also posting 26 rushing yards. Okay. In college, he was 3-time team captain, played 47 games, 44 starts, finished number 2 in school history in touchdowns, and touchdowns responsible for. Okay. Never heard that phrasing. And number 3 with 956 completions. Tune will wear number 19. Wiley is 6'7", 248, third-year player out of the University of Cincinnati, so they went with the Cincinnati tight end. Big, giant monster. Can't really go super wrong, right? Originally picked up by the Tennessee Titans in the 5th round, 147, 2023. Maybe I do remember him. Played in 28 games, 7 starts with the Titans in 2 seasons, 37 receptions, 342 yards, 9.2 average, 2 touchdowns. Also recorded 4 tackles on special teams, so that's probably a big appeal. Last season, he posted career highs in receptions with 28, receiving yards 248, special teams tackles 4. In college, he was a 3-time All-American Athletic Conference selection who set a school record for most career receiving touchdowns, 15, by a tight end. He will wear number 81. All right, so they added 13. Then they packed on 3 more with Cooper, Clayton Tune, and Josh Wiley. August 29th, cornerback Micah Robinson rejoined the squad, which brings them to 17, which is what they have, including the IPP exemption. So as far as I know, that is our 17-team practice squad. I don't think any of the 53 has been tweaked, as far as I can tell. And then the final thing I wanted to talk about, let me just make double sure that there's no other big news here. Not seeing it. There's always tomorrow. So the final thing that I wanted to briefly touch on, and I want to thank my AI robot friend for kind of going over this already, but I just wanted to mention the Micah Parsons contract. So as I've said now 1,000 times, the contract is going to be talked about as a 4-year, $186 million contract. Now, as I've said before, that is real. That is what he got. That is, if you wanted to ask what his value was put at, it's 4 years, 186. The problem is nobody thinks about things in those terms. They think about it in terms of how much are we paying? How much is this going to hurt our salary cap? And the more accurate way to reflect that is that it is not a 4-year contract. It is a 5-year contract. This is an extension. And so you take the 1 year he had remaining, you add it to the 186, and you spread it over 5 years. And they've actually spread it over more than that because they have 2 void years on there, which is really more like 1 year, but it's whatever. At the end of the day, it's not really going to matter. The void years don't really do anything other than lower how much they're going to pay earlier on. The first 3 years, which are the only years that really matter, are lowered because of the void years. For all intents and purposes right now, that's all that the void years are doing. So I'm not even worried about it in terms of, they're kicking the can down the road and that's going to hurt us later. Not really. We'll get to that. Let me read this snippet here from Spotrac. Micah Parsons signed a 4-year, $186 million contract with the Green Bay Packers, including $44 million signing bonus, $136 million guaranteed, an average annual salary of $46.5 million. That's of the extension. That is not the entirety of the contract. Parsons will earn a base salary of $1.17 million and a signing bonus of $44 million. So the cash up front is obviously very, very high. He gets $44 million put in his pocket, plus the 1.17. I don't see any roster bonus type stuff or anything else, but let's just assume that that's it. So little over $45 million this year. That's, roughly a third of his total guarantees in the first year. The cap hit, though, is under $10 million. It's 9.97. So if we look at this spread out here, let me go through some contract notes. $120 million guaranteed at signing bonus plus 2025 salary plus 2026 compensation plus 2027 option bonus. $16 million of the 2027-2028 salary fully guarantees early. We don't need to go through necessarily all that. 2025 through 2029 per game active bonus is $11,764 for a total of $200,000. So there's your roster bonus. It says 2025 through 2029. It's not listed here on the chart, but that would be this year. 2027 through 2029. They have a Pro Bowl escalator. If he makes the Pro Bowl, he gets another $250,000. 2027 through 2029, there's an All-Pro escalator of $250,000. In 2029, there's a Pro Bowl incentive of $250,000. In 2029, there is an All-Pro incentive of $250,000. Now, and I may be missing a couple details here. I'll kind of refine this as we go. There's sometimes some nuanced things depending on structure or whatever. Let me log in so I can just see this here real quick. In reality, what we're talking about is that this is a 3-year contract. In 2025, again, it's a $10 million cap hit. In 2026, it's a $19 million cap hit. It's a $110 million dead cap hit if he were to get cut, so that's impossible. But the cap hit is so low, why would you? $19 million. 2027, it's $27 million, which is still extremely low. Even if that cap hit was today, it's manageable. You figure with the cap increases over 2 years, you're looking at under $27 million. Then his cap hit explodes to $64 million, and this is where people would panic. But there's a cool little visual breakdown over here on Spot Track where you can see the dead cap as a line and then the cap hit as a bar. In the beginning, obviously, the dead cap is really high and the cap hit is really low. And what happens is, as the dead cap sinks through the floor, almost down to basically nothing left, that's when the cap hit explodes. When you see that, that's when you see that this is basically fake. They're never going to pay that. I've said that a million times about a million different guys, and it's always been true. They're not going to pay him. I shouldn't say pay him. They're not going to allow a $64 million cap hit for Micah Parsons. Essentially, the way that this is structured is that the cap hits are extremely backloaded, but the guarantees are all pretty front-loaded. Meaning by the time you get to that 4th year, most of those guarantees are gone. And so if they were to cut him, there's only $17.6 million left. That's the only real money that's left. You're looking at $64 million, like, oh, it's so much money. They only owe the guy $17.5 million as far as how much they promised him they would pay him. Everything above that has already been paid. So you say, well, where the heck does this cap hit come from? Well, all the fake money, the stuff that's above the guarantees that they said, we'll pay, don't worry, we'll pay you this, even though we don't promise that. That's in his base salary. So he's got a base salary of $40 million. They're not going to pay him $40 million as a salary that year. So there's only one of 3 things that's going to happen. Number 1 is they're going to cut him. That would be a disaster. That means over 3 years, he didn't come anywhere near what we thought he was going to be. He is going to be 29 years old, but that's still plenty young, assuming he's playing at a high level, to give him one more contract, which is actually perfect. You give him the 3 years, and then you say 29 years old. That's a good refresh year. If it's like 31 or even 30, you're like, yeah. 28, 29 is solid. It's do we want another year, 2, 3 years of this? Probably closer to 3, right? If we're being serious, we believe he's got 3 years left in him. That only puts him to 31, 29, 30, and 31. So if they cut him, we don't want him at age 29, 30, and 31. Then there is the most likely, which is an extension. An extension is, hey, look, and there's incentive here from Micah Parsons because he fully understands and his agent fully understands that the guarantees have dried up, and the guarantees are the real money. That's the stuff I want. I want cash money Guaranteed. If I get hurt or anything else, all this money goes bye-bye. So the Packers come in, they say, look, all your guarantees are dried up. How about we give you an extension? And an extension is more real money tacked on. Now, again, I haven't had the time to kind of sit down and decide what that could look like, but that's kind of the real way of kicking the can down the road. And it is going to kind of get compressed in that the money's going to start to add up, and your dead cap is probably going to be higher when you do end up saying goodbye to him. But the point is, you're going to have those 3 years, and then you can assume there's probably 2 to 3 more years, meaning you're going to get him through ages 30 to 31-ish at reasonable cap prices, and then you're going to move on and say goodbye. And there might be 1 year where it's kind of painful, maybe 2 where his final year is kind of a high cap hit, and then the next year is going to be a semi-high dead cap hit number, 20 million or something, I don't know, in that final void year when you eat all the rest of that money. For example, right now, if we did just play this all out, that 2030 year, the dead cap would be 15 million. I'm not sure if I'm understanding how they're writing this. 15 million, possibly 20 million, I don't know. But that's how they're going to do this. You're never going to see that $65 million cap hit. That's stupid. I mean, you can see it even with, I was looking at some of the Aaron Rodgers things here as sort of examples. It's hard because he kept getting new extensions, so it just kind of kept, but that's the point. You just keep sort of kicking the can down the road. So in his first contract, it's cap hit is actually kind of high that first year, 13 million, 14 million, but then it's 10, 6, 7, 8, and then it shoots up to 17 and 18 those final years. Guess which years they never paid? Those 17 and 18 years. They gave him an extension. And so what happened? It went right back down to 11. And it was 11, and then it was 17, 18, 19, 20, and then the final 2 years, they never paid it. They gave him an extension. And so then it was 20, then it was one weird year in 2019, it shot up to 29 million, but then it was 21 and 27, and then it shoots up to $47 million cap hit, and 33 the year after that. Oh boy, that's when we're in trouble. They never paid it. They didn't pay those years. Those are also the same years where the dead cap plummets. It was at 80, then 60, then 50, then 50, and then it drops down to 26. That's the flexibility. We either extend you or we eat a dead cap hit for 1 year of $27 million and we move on. But he's, 39 years old, we give him another extension. And this was the big extension. And of course, this one doesn't necessarily count because it was only the 1 year and then he went to the Jets, so it was a very different situation. But it was going to be similar anyways, to where it shot up to 56 and then 50 those final 2 years, which they were never going to pay. Kenny Clark was another guy that was around for a little bit of a while. I mean, it was only really the one extension. But you can look at his contract. It went from 6 to 6 to 9 to 12 to 27.5. They never paid the 27.5. They extended him. That voided all the rest of this bullcrap. Went into a new contract. He played 1 year under that contract. He is now a Dallas Cowboy. So for the next 3 years, we have Micah Parsons for $10 million, 19 million, and then 27 million. That's real. I don't necessarily see that being changed. It's possible he gets an extension or a restructure or something in there. But those are 3 years, extremely reasonable prices for the kind of player we're getting. The cap hit is an estimate because we don't know what the actual numbers are going to be. But 3.5% of the cap, 6.2% of the cap, and then under 8% of the cap in that third year. After that, any number you see doesn't matter. It's going to change. What it looks like, I don't know, but it's going to change. It's going to be different, and then we can reassess what that looks like. But we have a long time of just enjoying Micah Parsons and not having to worry even a little bit about the salary cap and all this talk about you blew out the salary cap and now you're screwed for the foreseeable future, blah, blah, blah. How does $10 million cap hit hurt us? How does a $19 million cap hit hurt us next year? How is that going to stifle us from anything? Oh, we got no cap space. We got this, we got that. We probably freed up more money with Kenny Clark than we're going to get hurt by this Micah Parsons hit in 2026. 2027, yeah, it's a relatively big number. There's a lot of big numbers out there. In fact, as of right now, Rashawn Gary has a higher cap hit that year. Again, is that ever going to get paid? I don't know. But Bosa, Watt, Josh Allen, Brian Burns, Bradley Chubb, Rashawn Gary, Max Crosby, and Myles Garrett all have higher cap hits that year. Yet some of these, probably like Nick Bosa at $52 million, I doubt that's ever getting paid. But some of these are going to get paid. Garrett in 2027, $29 million cap hit, that's getting paid. He's going to be 32 years old, $29 million cap hit. The dead cap is about $50 million. They're not going to get rid of him, so he's going to be making more, and that's a real number. I'm guessing the same for Max Crosby. This is a super strange structure. In fact, Max Crosby this year, his cap hit is $38 million. Obviously getting paid, it's this year. That is so weird. Why do they structure their contracts that way? I mean, it's entirely front-loaded, but in such a weird way. I mean, you're hurting yourself very much now, and then in 2027, you have no dead cap. So you have complete freedom, but I don't know why you would do this. So weird. But again, Max Crosby this year has taken a $38 million cap hit. We're talking about Micah Parsons making 26.8 2 years from now. How are we completely cap screwed? Well, in, 2028, he ain't going to be making that. He's got a new contract. And guess what's going to happen? The cap hit's going to go through the floor. Probably for at least 2 years. So we probably have 5 years of this guy with no real devastating cap hits. And again, there might be one painful hit. Who gives a crap when you consider 5 years of Micah Parsons at reasonable prices that doesn't destroy your cap? Yeah, well, in 2030, you're going to eat a $30 million dead cap hit. Well, sucks for that 1 year then, I guess. Worth it. I don't know exactly how this is going to go, but that's, whatever. All right, I'll tell you what. Been going on long enough. We'll take a break. Or not a break. We're gonna get out of here. I still have to do Packernet After Dark. It's already 10 o'clock. Good Lord. Maybe I'm not doing it tonight. I don't know. The heck is the point? Should be done by now. I should have done that first, I guess. Maybe we'll do it tomorrow. I apologize. I didn't think this through very much. We have 50 calls to get through. And we will. But not tonight. All right, you guys have a good rest of your night. I will talk to you later. Have a good one. Bye-bye.